All right, segment 3. Well, you've provided the evidence. Now, how did it happen? Take the down to the turning wheels in your argument. The rational optimist. Barter was the trick that changed the world. Elaborate on that.
In the end, the secret of human society compared with other animals, and the reason we're able to experience something called prosperity in the first place, is that we work for each other. That is to say, I do what I'm good at, and I share what I'm good at with other people, and they in exchange share what they're good at with me. So we specialize as producers, and we generalize as consumers. We're more diverse in what we consume because we're more specialized in what we produce. That's the sort of grand theme that's been playing out over human history. And sometimes it advances and sometimes it retreats. But on the whole, it's been getting more and more, so that we get more and more specialized in the way we do things. And that only works if you share, if you exchange, if you barter. And so I'm interested in when that barter trick was invented, because once we started saying, oh, you and your tribe, you have a lot of fish, we have a lot of bananas, we're sick of bananas, can we have some of your fish? We'll give you some of our bananas. And then we're both better off for the exchange. It's a non-zero-sum game. And then we go back and we say, well, actually, we don't need to go fishing in our rather bad river. We'll just grow bananas. We'll get all our fish from those guys, etc. So it can breed upon itself. That's the. I want to know when that began, because that's very odd. No other animals pulled that trick off, except within ant colonies and things. But they have to stay within the colony. It doesn't work. They can't work for strangers in ants. And it looks like that habit began 100,000 years ago, give or take some tens of thousands of years, we're not sure. Because that's when you first start seeing human artifacts moving long distances. You see beads and tools starting to travel inland from the sea or over long distances from a volcanic source or something like that. And that means trade. That means people are starting to move them hand to hand.
Another layer of your argument, again from the rational optimist. According to the anthropologist Joe Henrich, if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Correctly.
Human beings learn skills from each other by copying prestigious individuals, and they innovate by making mistakes that are very occasionally improvements. That's how culture evolves. The bigger the connected population, the more skilled the teacher, and the bigger the probability of a productive mistake, close quote. From which, question mark, it follows that we should cherish population growth, the development of cities, and now with technology, this new interconnectedness of the entire globe. That's all good.
Yes, is the short answer. Now, I'll just raise one question mark over population growth. It's absolutely true that the more people you have and the better they're communicating, the faster technology moves. We can see this clearly in the historical pattern. Countries with very sparse populations like Australia see a slower development of technology in the Stone Age. I'm not talking about today. In the Pacific, you see some islands, the bigger the population of the island or the more connected the island, the more diverse their technology, etc. So technology depends on a collective brain, not an individual brain. It doesn't mind how clever we are. It just minds how well we're communicating and how well we're trading and exchanging. And that, of course, is why cities work, because they're places where people do communication a lot. And most innovation comes out of cities these days. And that, of course, means that the Internet, which is a massive collective brain, is accelerating the rate of innovation. I think there's no doubt about that. It can't not be, because we're not only connecting our brains, we're now connecting our computers. They're no longer limited by their own power. They're connected to a network. It's a network effect. That said, I'm not convinced that going from 6.8 billion people to 9 billion people, as we will during the century, will make much difference in that respect. I suspect 6.8 billion is a big enough collective brain, depending on how well they're communicating.
I will return to population in a moment,
Yeah.
but I want to take one final step in your argument here. You argue in The Rational Optimist not only that this interconnectedness, the barter, the openness to commerce, not only does it make us richer, healthier, but it also makes us better. Quote, there is a direct link between commerce and virtue. So, as Gordon Gekko, so Matt Ridley, greed is good.
Well, I didn't say greed was good. I think one of the problems is that greed often means trying to get too much out of an exchange, not being fair, not leaving something on the table, if you like. And I have a problem with the difference between two kinds of markets. There's commerce markets where, how you get your toothpaste and your hamburgers and your haircuts in everyday life, which is a commercial market,
right.
and whether you're speculating on the value of assets, which is essentially financial markets, etc. Whether you're buying something in order to hope that it goes up in price rather than simply to use it.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
And I think those markets don't work so well. And
the speculative markets.
The speculative markets, because I think they're prone to bubbles and crashes, and, this is what we've just recently seen. But luckily, when those bubbles pop, they can do surprisingly little harm to the general process of the commercial market.
Matt, but I want to clear up the direct link between commerce and virtue. Are you arguing, and frankly, I wasn't sure from the book, are you arguing that because of commerce, the end result looks virtuous? That is to say, people are better off. It looks as though they're the benevolence of the hidden hand, to use Adam Smith's phrase. Or are you actually arguing that to engage in commerce develops habits of fairness, empathy with others, that it does truly make us, according to the Judeo-Christian range of values, better human beings?
I think I am arguing both those propositions, as it were, because if you look at, if you can actually take some of these bargaining games that economists have developed in experimental economics, and you can ask people in pre-state societies, hunter-gatherers and things like that, to play them. And it turns out that the more contact people have with commercial markets, the more money they leave on the table in these interactions, the more they realize that fairness is important. That actually, in some sense, markets train us to be, if you're running a stall selling bread, you learn pretty quickly that it's not a good idea to insult your customers or kill them or that kind of thing. And so the more people get embedded in commerce, the nicer they behave in all these old virtuous ways. And that's something that a lot of religious leaders, I think, have forgotten, and they tend to argue that we're nice despite commerce rather than because commerce.
Right.
And of course, I'm not saying that people operate in markets in order to do good. The reason a guy sells me lunch is not because he thinks, I'd like to do this guy a favour, but he is doing me a favour. And this is Adam Smith's great insight, is that most of the good that's done in the world is actually done by people who are not intending to do good, but they do it anyway.